If you're putting together a women's retreat, then this video is going to show you how to do it based on my 13 years of experience putting together women's events and retreats. So first we're going to talk about the different types of retreats. Then we're going to do a quick overview of what planning a retreat involves. We're going to talk about how to choose a retreat theme, then how to plan your retreat content, how to create a retreat schedule, and how to plan a women's business retreat. Finally, I'm going to share with you a truncated retreat checklist that you can go through to make sure you're hitting everything you need to. We're going to talk about what you as the host can bring to a women's retreat. And finally, of course, what you and your guests need to pack for your retreat. So the first thing to think about is that there are so many different types of retreats. And so whatever you ultimately create for your retreat is going to depend on what kind of retreat you're running and who you're running it for. So for example, a yoga retreat is going to look a whole lot different than a business retreat, although they do have certain things in common, which we will get into in this video. So just think about, first and foremost, what kind of retreat are you thinking about? Do you have a clear idea about what kind of retreat you want to do or not? And if you don't, you might want to check out one of my recent videos, which is how to pick a retreat theme. It's a whole video all about how to find that perfect topic, that perfect theme for your retreat. So let's talk a little bit about what planning involves. Obviously, the very most important first thing you need to do is design the retreat. Figure out what is the idea, what is it that you want to do. Designing the retreat involves who's going to be there, what's the topic, how are you going to market and sell it? What is the value proposition of the retreat? What are you going to price it for? How are you going to enroll people into it? So these are all certain things that you'll want to consider at the outset before you lay down any money, before you make any investment, or put too much effort and commitment into your retreat. Planning a retreat also involves marketing and filling the event. So having a clear marketing plan and knowing how many people you want to have there, how much each of them is going to pay, what's the deadline for enrollment, are you going to provide any specials for couples coming or friends coming, 2 for 1 kind of things. So everything having to do with marketing and promoting, aka filling your retreat. Obviously, another thing you'll want to address is producing the retreat, planning it, getting the logistics down, sending communications to the attendees. Now, these are all things that can get kind of into the weeds. This is the kind of stuff that you might want to actually get some support with. So thinking about too, do you need a team? Do you have a team? Do you have people in your life that might be able to support you in producing this thing, especially the first time out the gate? In fact, one of my clients, what she did was she enrolled her sister in helping her produce her first retreat, and then her sister became part of the team forevermore. And then finally, but certainly not least, you need to think about how are you going to profit from your retreat. If you're going to put all this time and energy and effort into your retreat, wouldn't it be nice to make some money from it? And there are a whole lot of different ways to profit from a retreat. I'm not going to get into them in this video, but I have an entire playlist about how to produce retreats and host them and run them in order to generate profit. A great retreat theme can help you differentiate your retreat, which makes it easier to market and sell. So I am not going to get deep into this topic here because I have an entire video just on how to pick a retreat theme, and I highly recommend clicking on that video and going and checking it out. And by the way, while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to my channel? I have so many videos, and I have videos coming out every single week with more and more topics like this one and others about how to generate revenues from retreats and online programs and masterminds and all sorts of things like that. So you might be wondering why I have this flip chart up the whole time, and here we are. We are at the time where I'm finally going to share with you how to map out your retreat content. So here's what I like to do. I like to start out with what's called a mind map. Now you can do a mind map on a blank piece of paper, or you can do a mind map online. There's all sorts of really cool mind mapping software out there. But what a mind map is it's a cool way of brainstorming or strategizing content for anything. I use mind maps when I outline books, presentations, and retreats. So let's say that you have a retreat that you want to put together. So you think about the retreat theme or the retreat outcome and put it right in the middle. So I'm going to use one of my clients as an example. So her expertise is in email marketing, right? Her name is Leanne Webster, and you've probably heard me talking about her before. So Leanne Webster is an expert in email marketing, and she has this retreat that's called Lead Machine Weekend. So this is just to put it in context, this is a project completion type of retreat, because there are several different types of retreats. And in this retreat, people are going to come in and they're going to create something very valuable in the world of email marketing. And this is a 3-day thing. So she wants something that's compressed, that by the time they're done, they'll have a really juicy outcome, and they have an opportunity or have a desire to keep working with her into the future with her other programs. So the other long-term programs that she offers is marketing strategy consulting, and she also offers list building production. So for example, she produces telesummits and things like that. So the way Leanne might come up with her content for her retreat is say, all right, what do people need in order to get started with email marketing? Well, they generally need a landing page, right? They've got to have a landing page, and then they often need some sort of freebie to put on the landing page to give away. We also call this sometimes a lead magnet, okay? Another thing they need is they need an email follow-up sequence. So when people arrive on the landing page to get the freebie and give them the email address, they need a follow-up email sequence. So they need an email that says, hey, here's your free gift that you signed up for, and oh, did you miss it? If you didn't get your free gift, click here for it. And, if you got the free gift and you loved it, then check out this next thing. So these are some of the core things that people need. And they might also need a 90-day email content plan. So these are some of the things that Leanne offers in her 3-day retreat. So now that she's got the idea, they also might need to learn about the law, right? Some people are breaking the law all the time, and they're spamming people and they don't even know it. So now that she has a clear idea of the universe of things that people might need, now she can say, all right, what's the very first thing that they need? So the first thing is probably learning about the law so they don't break it. The second thing is maybe brainstorming on their freebie. And the third thing they might need to do is to design the freebie or write it or create it or whatever. So now that Leanne has all of this, she can put it into a content structure. So now that you have your mind map and you know all of the different things that you need to execute in your retreat, now you put it into time. You don't have to do a 3-day retreat. However, 3 days is what I recommend as a minimum. And it's the length of my retreats and the ones that most of my clients do. So let's go ahead and map out day 1, day 2, and day 3. So day 1, day 2, day 3. So this is what I like to do, okay? And you can do it your own way, but I like to right away say, all right, I'm gonna have lunch at some point about halfway through the day, and usually I like to leave about a 90-minute lunch break, and then I like to do 2 sessions in the morning and 3 sessions in the afternoon. Okay, so we have these slots now already designed. Now we can combine sessions, we can remove sessions, but essentially this gives us a map. All right, so if you add this all together, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sessions each day times 3. So that's 15 slots. That's so much time to do almost anything I need to do. Now, the first thing I do is I X out the beginning and the end. So the first session is my opening, which is what I call a pre-frame. And this is where I set the rules of engagement for the retreat, and I get people on the same page, agreeing to certain guidelines, ways of communicating, things like that. And then I usually set aside the last session or even 2 sessions for the closing and the wrap-up. And the reason I like to set aside both sessions is because nobody hates being let go early from a 3-day retreat, especially one that's as packed as this one can be. So now that we have 15 minus 2 or 3, that's about 12 or 13 sessions left. So now we want to think about, let's go back to Leanne's example. So Leanne might want to set aside 1 or 2 sessions for brainstorming, right? So we want to place the things in time, in order, and be really generous with our timing. One of the biggest problems I see people making is that they overstuff their retreats and they forget that information is not transformation. And sometimes one of the best things you can do is leave open space for people to process, integrate, bond, and connect, especially if you're following my advice and doing a retreat where you make an offer into the next thing. And if you hear a lot of noise in the background, that's because my little puppy Neo has decided to rip apart some of my sheets from before. He's eating them, but I think that it's safe and I don't think that it's gonna hurt him. In fact, I hope not. All right, Neo, are you done with that? Good boy. All right, so the final closing and wrap up is also, I don't think I addressed this part. This is a great time to integrate what people got and to have them make plans for what they're gonna do next. Now, another thing that I didn't put on here yet is that somewhere in here, and I recommend right here, making some sort of offer into the big back end. And then placing everything else that's important to your retreat in here. And leaving at least one, if not two, open spots for spillover or things that come up that you weren't expecting. So I usually like to leave this spot open because it's end of day and people are tired, and I usually leave one of these spots open as well, just in case. Though that's a little bit of an overview of how you might want to map out and plan your retreat schedule. Now let's talk about how you might want to tweak this for a women's business retreat, as opposed to, say, a personal development or spiritual retreat. Now, interestingly, my advice is not to change it too much. The fact is that I believe, in my experience and my personal preference, I find that women need a bit of an informal environment in order to really get value out of a business retreat. To have a really buttoned up, formal, suits on kind of retreat, you're not gonna make inroads and headway into women's deepest issues and problems. So if you're trying to help women up level, take new risks, be more courageous, more confident, all the things that you might wanna address in a retreat, then you're probably gonna need to give them the opportunity to let their hair down, be vulnerable, and connect. And what that takes is downtime, bonding time, integration time, and a safe container is what I call it. A safe container within which to be authentic and real and vulnerable with each other. So here's a little bit about how to plan a women's retreat and really create a checklist. Now, an actual checklist for a women's retreat would be hundreds, if not 1,000 items long. So I'm just gonna give you certain key categories to consider. There's the whole big venue category. Where are you gonna host your event? What kind of fees do you need to pay? Do you need to commit to a room block? Depending on your venue, there's gonna be a whole host of to-do items that go onto your retreat checklist. Another category to consider is promotion and sales. How are you going to market your retreat? How are you going to put it out there? When you find someone who wants to enroll in it, how are they going to be able to pay for it? Are you going to send them a link? Are you going to take a credit card over the phone? These are all things to consider in advance. Think about your cancellation and rescheduling policy. Are you going to be generous with that, or are you not going to let people cancel and reschedule into future retreats? You'll need to consider the communications. Once people sign up for your retreats, what are they getting? Do they get a receipt? Do they get an invoice? Do they get an onboarding email? Some sort of communication to know what to expect, how to travel to the venue, accommodations information. All of that stuff needs to be figured out in advance before you ever make your first sale. Another thing that people often forget is insurance and disclaimer forms, and also release forms. So insurance for your event, you can get that online. The tool that I use is called eventhelper.com. Disclaimers are things that protect you from liability. So for example, disclaimers can look like, hey, we're gonna give you all this advice, but we are not responsible if you don't implement it or if it doesn't work for you. And release forms. You'll need release forms if you plan to do video or photography of the event to make sure that you're allowed to use that video and those images for your future event promotions. Another thing to think about is creating a packing list for yourself as you think of things, and also for your clients who are attending the retreat. Think about transportation. How are people gonna get to the retreat? How are they gonna travel there? Are you gonna have them picked up? A lot of work, by the way. Or are you gonna tell them how they can get themselves to the venue? And then finally, you'll want to think about support or helpers. I mentioned that earlier, but this is something to definitely put on your retreat checklist. Next, let's talk about what you'll want to bring to a women's retreat. Obviously, you'll want to have decor. I always love this part the most. I go to Michael's or Marshall's or TJ Maxx and I buy those really inspirational posters and, pre-framed items, and I put them all the way around our retreat venue. I also get flowers, sometimes real, sometimes fake flowers, and put them all around too. Chocolate. Women love chocolate, and whenever in doubt, just put some chocolate out. Another thing to think about is having a first aid kit, maybe a thermometer. This day and age, it's good to have people check their temperature every day just to reduce your liability around illness or spreading disease. Think about bringing speakers and microphones and speakers to play music so that you can do visualizations and meditations. I like to bring water bottles, reusable water bottles. We don't allow plastic bottles in our retreat because we want to encourage people to take care of the environment. Bring extra chargers for people, electronic chargers. Make sure you have your chargers. And also think about bringing gifts for every single person who attends your retreat. And finally, a word about alcohol. Sometimes it can be really enticing to provide alcohol at retreats, and you can absolutely do that. But what I've found is that it sometimes distracts from the purpose of the retreat. For that reason, we've actually decided no longer to provide or allow alcohol or any kind of substances at our retreats because we find it kind of takes away from the experience instead of adding to it. And in terms of what to pack for a women's retreat, well, that's obviously going to depend on your retreat. Think about what activities you're going to do, map out each activity, and then look at what items somebody might need for those. So if you have like hot tub in the evening, make sure you let people know to bring their bathing suits. If you're going to go on a hike, make sure you tell people to bring hiking shoes or running shoes and sunscreen and a hat and a water bottle, etc. So just want to look through your schedule piece by piece and figure out what do people need for each item. If you want to learn about how to run retreats and grow your business using retreats and masterminds, then check out my step-by-step free resource, the Retreats to Riches Roadmap. You can get that at retreatstorichesroadmap.com or just click on the link below. Enjoy.